dear. I
Okay,
hope
go
not.
on. We're just slagging Fortnite off.
Yeah, well, he was saying, what is this? What is this going to cost? Like 60 quid or whatever for? I don't even know what it is. Skins? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And it was like, so does this give you like extra superpowers or whatever? And it was like, no, it just makes your avatar look better. And I was like, it's just bananas. Like, how are people doing? Like, why are people doing this?
Yeah.
And all the kids as well. They genuinely would rather watch someone playing Fortnite than play it themselves. It's kind of got to that stage. And I was just like, what? That makes no sense to me at all. I was like, literally, why would you want to watch someone playing a game? Does it
Yeah.
make sense? I don't know.
I know what
Maybe
you
I'm
mean.
missing a gene or something.
There is
But
that whole like culture nowadays of like watching. I've fallen into that. Like I've watched people. I mean, the other day I think I told you I watched like a 5 hour speed run of like somebody completing Super Mario Brothers 64 without pressing the button A. But
yeah.
I was fascinated by it. I was like completely addicted to it. I don't know. There's something about it, but
Something that draws you in. Yeah. But
with
to be
the
fair, I've never tried it. So I guess maybe
I
that's
mean, it's elite level
why.
gaming. I mean, that's probably why I watched it, because I couldn't do that. Like it's pure like elite level gaming. But the microtransactions and stuff. I mean, my gaming console is N64, which was what discontinued about 25 years ago, because I find that like all of the modern games, they're built around these microtransactions. They're not. You don't get the game anymore where you can get everything you need to get better within that game. Now
Yeah.
it's like, we'll give you this bare bones, but we're going to try and exploit as much microtransaction cash out of you as possible. So we're gonna make it so if you want to complete the game, it will take 4,000 hours if you were to do it properly. You're gonna have to wander around the woods and like pick mushrooms for like, or you can pay $4.99 a month and you get the super mushroom collector, and you can skip that and you can finish it in 40 hours. It's that kind of crap where the
Right.
games
Yeah.
now are designed to make you want to buy these extras. So it's like, not, you don't just buy the game anymore. You've got the game, and if you want to complete the game well and be good at it and better than your mates, then you've got to buy all of these extra little digital add-ons. And all the digital add-ons are just like, there's nothing unique about them. They're just paid extras. They're shit coins.
They're just like NFTs kind of
Yeah.
thing, I guess. I still don't really understand what
I
NFTs
still don't
are.
understand that,
Like,
but
don't understand like why, what people see in them, and how people are like selling them for like millions and stuff like that. Yeah, that's actually something that I realised recently as well. You know that the guy who runs Bitcoin magazine, he has his own website and sells basically Bitcoin NFTs. I think they call them ordinals or something like that, but they're basically the same thing, just images, and he sells them for like 5, 10, 15 Bitcoin per picture.
what?
I'm like, it's just the big, and this is the same guy who, I think he runs the conference, the big one in Vegas and stuff like that. I think it's him. I'm not sure
Right.
on that actually, to be fair, but Bitcoin magazine's a big thing that people look to find out about it, and he's obviously going to then. So this is a big part of the whole spam and stuff like that's been going on Bitcoin, because he wants the spam because he's benefiting by selling random pictures for 10 Bitcoin.
Right. So
So
it's a picture that's going onto the blockchain, is it? Is that what it is?
yeah, it's the exact stuff that this whole Knots core debate has been around. Is basically Knots people don't want spam on there, and I think it's all kind of got a bit blown out of proportion.
Yeah.
I've learned even more since in the last
I've been
couple of
seeing,
weeks.
yeah, like good arguments on both sides, but I
Yeah,
don't really understand still.
I think the issue is, so I actually had some guy who reached out to me on the video I created the other day, and he's been so good. Like the amount of time he has spent explaining stuff to me is unreal. Like I can't
that's
believe
good.
that he's done that.
Who is he?
I don't know.
Oh,
He's
really?
very private. Yeah, but he said he's been in it since like 2011. So obviously, if you've done that, you know the techie stuff. Like no one that's in it from 2011 there's no random average person like me and you that's in it
Sure.
from 2011. Like
Sure.
you have
Yeah.
to understand, like you obviously codes and it's got all, so, but basically the point he was making is he called it a bit of a nothing burger, this whole core 30 update.
Okay.
But he said the issue is that it's creating this divide,
Okay.
and that I've created a video which is probably contributing to it. If you know what I mean? So because I don't understand the tech. Like
That's
that's
fair
the
enough.
thing.
Yeah.
And it's humbled me a lot more as well. Actually, it's that whole like, what is that
It's
chart?
the
The
Dunning-Kruger effect. The
Dunning-Kruger. That's
Dunning-Kruger.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think. Yeah. To be fair, I I probably was doing that, like at the top of there, knowing like hardly anything because I've like watched a few things and like think that I understand it, but I'm not even close to understanding it. But basically, the point is that all of these attacks that people are talking about, they're all perfectly capable of. Anyone can do them right now, like because of these inscriptions.
Can you
Yeah,
see
that's
that?
it. Yeah, I was peak of Mount Stupid, 100%. And now I am literally in the Valley of Despair. Like, oh
Right.
my
You're
God.
thinking,
Like,
I don't know as much as I thought.
you need to, like, and this is the point that he made, actually. And it made me really be like, oh, crap, he's so right. Everyone says don't trust, verify.
Yeah.
I think that's really hard with Bitcoin is that unless you code or like understand all of these technical stuff,
Yeah.
it's very hard to do. And so
Yeah.
you're basically going to be relying on what other people that do understand it say.
That's right.
And I've kind of come to like the conclusion I've come to is that I don't think anyone is deliberately doing anything malicious here. So like the whole mechanic side, and like there's people from the core side are like, mechanic and Bitcoin University and Dasher, they are pushing their own agenda to get everyone to switch to knots or whatever it is for whatever reason. But I've really dug into like there's a really good debate between Mechanic and I always forget their name, like the guys who are pushing for core, and like listening to what they're saying, I actually think they're both truly being on it. Like that is both their reality, that is both their truth, sort of thing. What they're both saying. I don't think either side are deliberately pushing an agenda or saying anything like that. They're both obviously very technical and they understand what's going on and they just see it slightly different. And that's really the thing.
It could be a case of like, is that saying iron sharpens iron? Have you heard that one before?
No, I don't think I have. What does that mean?
It basically means like both sides are trying to have got the same goal to like make Bitcoin as good as possible, keep it as decentralized and secure as possible. But they're both coming at it from different angles, but they're almost like they're bouncing off each other. And it's good that you've got this opposition. Well, not kind of like quote opposition, and they're battling against each other in a bit of competition, but they're using each other to make it as good as possible. They're keeping each other in check, basically. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I actually agree with it, and I actually think this whole thing is going to strengthen Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is going to become stronger from it. Basically, I don't think it's actually anywhere near as bad as a lot of people saying.
I
which
agree.
Then also makes so much sense as to why no one seems to care, because I think the people that do understand this from like a deep technical level,
they say it's
genuinely don't care.
It's not an issue. That's fair enough. Yeah.
Whereas I think the issue is the point he made, and I do kind of agree with this as well, is that it's almost becoming like this knots army. And like people are getting angry about it, and like to the extent where once this whole core 30 update happens, and this whole like 100,000 byte thing is released, so they're taking the limit off the opera term. Once that happens, because people are so angry about this, it could become like a self-fulfilling prophecy, almost like where someone's like, oh, because you've done this, I'm now going to prove the point and I'm going to do the exact attack that everyone's worried about, to be like, look, if you hadn't done this, this wouldn't have happened. But it might be someone that actually supports Bitcoin but they're just making their point almost, sort of thing, which is kind of already happening. So dug into this one of Peter Todd and Mechanic on Twitter. And so one of the things that Mechanic is saying is that once this happens,
In fact, I think I saw that thread as well. Yeah.
Yeah, once this happens, it can basically, there can be like malware that enters Bitcoin, and so all of these sort of cloud storage, but any node that's run through some sort of cloud-based storage, they will have the antivirus software trigger, which then shuts down all of the nodes at once that are running this, because there's malware that enters the system, and then they're sort of like, oh, this is a virus and it's going to, so we're going to shut down this computer.
Was it Mechanic that said that?
Yeah. And so Peter Todd did it. he's done it now, because he's like, the point, he's proven the point, like, this is already possible. I've just injected like the worst stuff that you can possibly think of.
Yeah.
And are all the nodes shut down? Like, that's his point. And the Mechanic sort of like saying, yeah, but he put a picture of like an aeroplane with loads of gun hole. And so I think the point he's making is that you've just done one, whereas if you do tons, then there might be an issue. And he's sort of saying, but like, tell me what to inject then, or tell me what this attack would look like, and I'll do it, and then we'll see, sort of thing, So, again, I don't think either of them are like being. Whereas if you're
not being deceptive,
Knots, exactly. If you're Team Knots, you're gonna be like, oh, there's Peter Todd, he's such a troll, and like, blah blah blah. But from his point of view, he's probably been like, well, I've tried to explain to Mechanic, I'm trying to explain, I don't think this is going to happen. And this is already possible. All of the threats that you're saying are already possible. And so I'm trying, he's just got to the end. He's probably getting to the end of his tether. Well, you can imagine, like, if you're trying to explain something, you're like, look, this is what's happening. And Mechanic's like, yeah, but you're just one person. And if loads of people do it, then it could still be an issue. Whereas you just don't know until it happens, sort of thing. So I think that's the thing that's really, like, it gets really deep and technical, really, with to fully understand it. But I think the bottom line is all of the issues that Mechanic and Knots are worried about are already possible, but just using another method. So rather than using the op return, you can use what's called inscriptions, which is basically this whole ordinals, this whole NFT thing, which is only started since the Taproot upgrade in 2023. So it's only it's only recent. And again, like, the Taproot thing is a whole other rabbit hole you have to dive down to even figure, to even to start to understand what these guys are saying.
Yeah, I thought Taproot was a new metal band from 2001. That's my extent. That's my extent of Taproot.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. And then there was the SegWit thing, and it seems like SegWit was really useful. What was that, 2017, 2018, somewhere around there? So SegWit soft fork was really useful because the Lightning network has only been able to be used since SegWit. So it's massively helped, and you wouldn't want to take it away, because Lightning helps for so many things, daily transactions and low fees and all of that, everything that Lightning does. Whereas it has made it easier for this whole inscriptions and these different ways that people store spam on Bitcoin, basically. So he's sort of like, one of the potential solutions could be another soft fork to get rid of this whole witness data sort of thing, not completely moving the SegWit stuff, but there's just so many like layers to it. It's like, and even two people that do really understand code and really understand the technicalities and have been in Bitcoin this whole time might come to a completely different conclusion about something.
It's like at our meetup, there's two of the OGs. We won't dox any, but one runs core and one runs knots. Do you know what I mean? One's quite pro knots, the other's quite anti knots for various reasons. In fact, one of them, again, we won't dox him, but he runs two nodes. One is core. One is an old version of core, I think he said, and the other is not. So he runs both.
And he's like his bets. And I think a lot of people will be doing that at the minute.
He's the most knowledgeable person I think I know.
And this is the other thing as well, is with this update, it's not like an update on your phone where if you plug it in overnight and you've clicked automatic updates, it will just automatically do it. you have to manually go in and make this update. Like, so for every update that happens, it doesn't just get rolled out. It's and the point of this guy that I had this massive long chat with, back and forth with, he was sort of saying is that even with this update, you'll be lucky to get to like 10% of people within the next year, sort of thing, and then to get to 50%, you're looking at like 5 years plus, because exactly like I say, is that it's not like it automatically rolls out.
Yeah.
And yeah, like he sent me like blocks where there's already like 390 kilobytes. So this op return will allow 100 kilobytes by default. So it goes from 8 bytes to 100 kilobytes, whereas there's already blocks that exist because of this whole inscriptions and all of these different ways, like the BRC20. Again, it's another thing. It's like a whole other thing that you have to like dig down to like even understand what they're talking about. But this already is possible, like way worse stuff. And it's like the core genuinely believes that by doing this, it will, well, for a start as well. So that 390 kilobyte image that I saw, like it was just, you know, super high definition image, which is already there perfectly fine. They only paid like 100 kilobytes worth. So they basically get a 75% discount by using inscriptions. Whereas if you use op return, you'll have to pay the full price, sort of thing. So he was saying that's one of the reasons why they're doing it. Although people that are spamming, are any of them actually going to care? Then they're probably not. They're still going to use the cheaper version. They're still probably going to use inscriptions, even though that they're allowing this. Whereas there are some good actors who need slightly more than 80 or 8 that more than 80 bytes, which is the current limit. So they need like 160 or something. So they will actually probably use it. Like, and so this is the point of why Core's doing it. It won't then bloat the whole UTXO set, which is an issue for nodes and an issue for everyone really, which is like, this is, and it's like, well, okay, this is the reason why. And at the end of the day, like he says, it's kind of a nothing burger. People will always find workarounds to get spam in. And this is why that whole, the fee is the filter, gets thrown around so much by like the core side and stuff. And that is the point, is that if someone is willing to pay the fee,
they can get it on anyway.
Yeah. And that's the whole Andreas, what's his name? Andreas, I always get
Antonopoulos or something.
Antonopoulos, yeah. So I've seen clips of him from, you know, years ago saying this exact same thing, where there's no illegal transactions that happen on Bitcoin. There's just transactions that get accepted and transactions that don't. And that's based on whether they pay the fee, pretty much. Yeah. You know, and so, yeah.
There's no inbuilt morality filter. It's just literally just code.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
It's not biased to what it transacts.
That's exactly it. It's not, and it's not a what is it? The consensus. Let's even. I've learned so much this last week. It all is mush in my brain at the minute, so I need to try and get it all out properly. But it's not a change to like the consensus layer. Is that what it's called?
Consensus? Yeah, I mean, there's loads of dodgy shit on the internet, but it's not a reason to like justify shutting down the internet. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's it. Yeah. I know. That's what I said to him as well. I was like, well, what's going to stop people from doing this attack? You know, the CSAM stuff. He's like, well, what stops people doing it anytime? You know, morality and that also it's potential to be traced back to them, and they could be in serious trouble. And you know, it's the same. It's possible right now. Basically, is the point. And so, I don't know. It was just quite insightful, really. I found. But I think the bottom line is the real issue here is the division and this like die-hard teams that then are against each other. Whereas that is not the point.
No, that's right. Yeah,
that is not the point of Bitcoin. That's where issues could come from. Where if this change happens, then someone might maliciously attack it exactly how they've said to make a point and be like, see,
or they start attacking each other, which is just
Yeah,
not what
which
you
is
want either.
kind of already happening a little bit.
Yeah.
If you've seen, like, there's, I think on Bitcoin University, he showed like the core side laughing at knots or something and doing
Oh yeah,
something to shut them down or
DDoS them
something.
and
And
that. Yeah.
yeah, all that sort of stuff. So all that sort of things starting to happen, and it's just silly. And it comes from so many people just not really understanding it on a technical level, including myself. Like, even with this, I'm nowhere near understanding like what's actually going on, and it's still, I'm still just relying on what someone else with technical ability is saying, if you know what I mean. And then I can sort of, you can check things to a certain extent, but from like links and like going down rabbit holes and things like that. But you can't, like, it's not like I can just get the Bitcoin code and read it and be like, yeah, this makes sense. Like, I can't do that because I can't code and I can't
Yeah, well,
do
learn
all
to
that sort of
code.
stuff. Yeah.
And you continue to do a week's worth of research and then condense it down for me in 5 minutes next week. Next week, I'll have next week's update.
Oh yeah, I've just been spending so much time in it. It's crazy. I get to the end of the day sometimes, and I'm just like, well, my wife's like, "You're right." I'm like, "Oh, I'm just so brain dead.
Brain
It's
dead.
so intense. Like,
Yeah.
trying to figure what is probably really basic to anyone with like any kind of technical knowledge, but I have to like just reword it every time to figure out what it actually means. So yeah,
Well, thank you for your service, as they say. Right. Should we crack on with the book?
yeah, let's do it.
You're probably going to get some people listening that think, oh, I'm just going to skip all that waffle at the start and I'm going to skip to the book. Or you might get some people thinking, oh, that's my favorite bit. I'm going to skip the book, though. Not interested in books. We'll see.
Yeah.
Right, then we are up
Yeah, let us
at
know which one, if you are one of those people, let us know which you prefer.
book or chat. We are on chapter 5 of the Bitcoin Standard, I believe. So this is episode 12 and we're on chapter 5. So let's see, how many chapters have we got in this book? 1, 2, 3, 4, 10. Okay, so we're probably about halfway through. Maybe even just more than halfway through, which is good. Shall I read and you slide?
Yeah, go for it.
All right then, so we're on innovations, 0 to 1 versus 1 to many. The impact of sound money on time preference and future orientation can be seen in more than just the level of savings, but also in the type of projects in which a society invests. Under a sound money regime similar to what the world had in the late 19th century, individuals are far more likely to engage in long-term investments and to have large amounts of capital available to finance the sort of projects that will require a long time to pay off. As a result, some of the most important innovations in human history were born in the golden era at the end of the 19th century. In their seminal work, The History of Science and Technology, Bunch and Hellmans compile a list of the 8,583 most important innovations and inventions in the history of science and technology. Physicist Jonathan Huebner analyzed all these events along with the years in which they happened and global population at that year, and measured the rate of occurrence of these events per year per capita since the Dark Ages. Huebner found that while the total number of innovations rose in the 20th century, the number of innovations per capita peaked in the 19th century. A closer look at the innovations of the pre-1914 world lends support to Huebner's data. It is no exaggeration to say that our modern world was invented in the gold standard years preceding World War I. The 20th century was the century that refined, improved, optimized, economized, and popularized the inventions of the 19th century. The wonders of the 20th century's improvements make it easy to forget that the actual inventions, the transformative world-changing innovations, almost all came in the golden era. Well, they say that, but we've got the Labubu has just been invented. You know the Labubus, Mike?
No? What? What's a Labubu? Are you joking?
Those little key rings that hang off your belt that are taking over the world at the minute.
I have zero idea what you're even
A
talking about.
Labubu,
Oh my
right?
word. I'm so out of touch with like real world stuff. I've just been diving down the Bitcoin rabbit hole so deep. I have no idea what's going on in the world.
Let me show you. Let me screen share the Labubu.
Oh my god, are you joking? Please say you're joking. Is this actually, are people actually doing
This
this?
is one of those craze things that where it sells out instantly. Maybe it's died down a little bit now, but
Like
where
Beanie Babies.
kind of like Beanie Babies, yeah. But then they just resell for like £100, but it's literally just like a little demon keyring.
Oh my word.
Anyway, gone off track there. My fault. I was just thinking of Labubus. I'm hooked. Right then, in his popular book From Zero to One, Peter Thiel discusses the impact of the visionaries who create a new world by producing the first successful example of a new technology. I watched this. I think it was Peter Thiel. Is that the PayPal guy? Do you know? Do you know who he is?
Yeah.
I think I watched an interview with him once. I can't remember who it was. It was he was debating somebody, and this guy was just calling him out, calling him the Antichrist. like live on stage, and then there was another interview that he had where somebody asked him, he addressed these things like, so people call you the Antichrist, and he's like, well, it's not necessarily a bad thing, blah blah blah. He's an absolute weird freak, this Peter Thiel
Oh my
guy.
word. Yeah.
Like
Same.
no regard for human life at all. One of these like
Same as
Malthusian,
Elon Musk type person, isn't he? Really?
well, like these kind of
Both with
technocrats where they
PayPal.
think that the Earth will be better off with less humans and that kind of thing, but just weird kind of like anti-human worldview
Yeah.
freaks. The move from having 0 to 1 successful example of a technology, as he terms it, is the hardest and most significant step in an invention, whereas the move from 1 to many is a matter of scaling, marketing, and optimization. Those of us who are enamored with the concept of progress might find it hard to swallow the fact that the world of sound money pre-1914 was the world of 0 to 1. Whereas the post-1914 world of government-produced money is the world of moving from 1 to many. Yeah, all Bitcoin is 0 to 1, and then all the shitcoins are 1 to many, I guess you could say as well. There is nothing wrong with the move from 1 to many, but it certainly gives us plenty of food for thought to consider why we do not have many more 0 to 1 transformations under our modern monetary system. The majority of the technology we use in our modern life was invented in the 19th century under the gold standard, financed with the ever-growing stock of capital accumulated by savers storing their wealth in a sound money and store of value which did not depreciate quickly. A summary of some of the most important innovations of the period is provided here. Hot and cold running water, indoor toilets, plumbing, central heating. These inventions, taken for granted today by anyone living in a civilized society, are the difference between life and death for most of us. They have been the main factor in the elimination of most infectious diseases across the globe and allowed for the growth of urban areas without the ever-present scourge of diseases. Electricity, internal combustion engine, mass production. Our modern industrial society was built around the growth in utilization of hydrocarbon energy, without which none of the trappings of modern civilization would be possible. These foundational technologies of energy and industry were invented in the 19th century. Automobile, airplane, city subway, electric elevator. We have La Belle Epoque to thank for our city's streets not being littered with horse manure, and for our ability to travel around the world. The automobile was invented by Carl Benz in 1885, the airplane by the Wright brothers in 1906, the subway by Charles Pearson in 1843, and the electric elevator by Elisha Otis in 1852. Heart surgery, organ transplant, appendectomy, baby incubator, radiation therapy, anesthetics, aspirin, blood types and blood transfusions, vitamins, electrocardiograph, stethoscope, surgery and modern. Just thinking this, I wouldn't like to live in pre all of this. Do you know what I mean? I've said before, like, oh, life as a medieval peasant would be quite nice because there was no debt.
Yeah,
You know,
well,
but
yeah,
actually,
you'd be
without all
dead at
this stuff,
40.
exactly, if
you're
that,
lucky.
probably, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but just seeing this though is like, what have we done in the 20th century?
Yeah,
Like, I don't know,
yeah,
aeroplanes.
yeah. It makes sense. All of these things are brand new
Oh no,
inventions.
airplane is in the 19th century.
Oh well, just 1906.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, I was
Yeah,
technically right then.
what have we done since?
1906, other than Bitcoin.
It's literally just been a century of war rather than a century of invention. It's not been a particularly golden age, has it?
And that's why they say, isn't it? Like, it's anti-war when you have sound money.
Anyway, next. Surgery and modern medicine owe their most significant advances to La Belle Epoque. I wonder what La Belle Epoque is. Does that mean like the golden age in French? The good epoch. I think it probably does.
Yeah, that sounds
I
about
don't
right.
think they're referring to a person. La Belle Epoque. Does it come up?
The Belle Epoque, meaning beautiful era
The beautiful era,
in
yeah.
French.
The introduction of modern sanitation and reliable hydrocarbon energy allowed doctors to transform the way they cared for their patients after centuries of largely counterproductive measures. Petroleum-derived chemicals, stainless steel, nitrogen-based fertilizers, the industrial substances and materials which make our modern life possible all derive from the transformative innovations of La Belle Epoque, which allowed for mass industrialization as well as mass agriculture. Plastics and everything that comes from them are a product of the utilization of petroleum-derived chemicals. Telephone, wireless telegraphy, voice recording, color photography, movies. While we like to think of our modern era as being the era of mass telecommunication, in reality, most of what we have achieved in the 20th century was to improve on the innovations of the 19th. The first computer was the Babbage computer, designed in 1833 by Charles Babbage, but completed by his son Henry in 1888. It might be an exaggeration to say that the internet and all it contains are bells and whistles added on to the invention of the telegraph in 1843, but it does contain a kernel of truth. It was the telegraph which fundamentally transformed human society by allowing for communication without the need for the physical transport of letters or messengers. That was telecommunications 0 to 1 moment, and everything that followed, for all its wonders, has been a one-to-many improvement. That's interesting. I think I can't remember what book I was reading. To be honest, it might have been this one, where it spoke about the the telegraph poles, like the mass communication. That
Yeah.
the first banking ledger came about because of that technology, and then the first kind of paper ledger on top of gold came about because of that, because information could now travel a lot quicker. You could have, cables from country to country, but the actual bearer asset, the gold, couldn't travel that fast. Whereas before, gold could travel as fast as the message, because the message had to be sent by letter or word of mouth, like postman. But when you had this invention of the telegraph pole, the message that could now travel a lot quicker. Therefore, a ledger was created between banks. So they would start IOUs and say, right, we've taken this deposit, add that to your ledger. And then on top of that, paper was printed. Because the bearer asset couldn't travel as fast as the message. And then it created this divide, which we've had for the past, 100 odd years. But Bitcoin is the first invention where the bearer asset is the same, can be sent at the same speed of the message, which is the speed of, the internet, I guess, the speed of whatever, fiber optic, speed of light, whatever. The actual asset now can be sent so it's bridged that gap. So
Technically, like the bearer asset does need a bit of time, but yeah, like I mean, obviously with Lightning and stuff like that, you can move basically the same thing and then convert that back into the base layer whenever you want, sort of thing. So
well, yeah, it's dropped it down to 10 minutes, I guess.
yeah, but then even technically, I think you have to wait like what is it, 6 blocks for it to be like fully confirmed, like and until it's immutable basically, and then that's it. It will be stored there forever, sort of thing.
Yeah, so if you send in £1 billion to Australia, that's actually not bad compared to
Yeah,
before.
and like the price,
Yeah,
the cost of it as well, like doing it in the
yeah,
current system. I think that's the thing as well, is like most normal people don't recognize this. Like it's hard for us to understand this because we don't deal with like billions of pounds. So we don't know this, but like it costs an insane amount to move
yeah.
that much. You know, because you need to use the banks or whatever it is as the payment method, like the carrier
Third
basically.
party, yeah.
Yeah. Whereas now with Bitcoin, whether you send a billion or one sat on the base layer, is basically the same fee or a very similar fee.
Should we continue?
Yep.
Artistic flourishing. The contributions of sound money to human flourishing are not restricted to scientific and technological advance. They can also be vividly seen in the art world. It is no coincidence that Florentine and Venetian artists were the leaders of the Renaissance, as these were the two cities which led Europe in the adoption of sound money. The Baroque, Neoclassical, Romantic, Realistic, and Post-Impressionistic schools were all financed by wealthy patrons holding sound money, with a very low time preference and the patience to wait for years or even decades for the completion of masterpieces meant to survive for centuries. The astonishing domes of Europe's churches, built and decorated over decades of inspired meticulous work by incomparable architects and artists like Filippo Brunelleschi and Michelangelo, were all financed with sound money by patrons with very low time preference. The only way to impress these patrons was to build artwork that would last long enough to immortalize their names as the owners of great collections and patrons of great artists. This is why Florence's Medicis are perhaps better remembered for their patronage of the arts than for their innovations in banking and finance, though the latter may be far more consequential. This is what we were on about last week. But banana on the wall is a banana sellotaped to a wall. So there we go. We've got fiat art nowadays as well.
Yeah.
Similarly, the musical works of Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, and the composers of the Renaissance, classical and romantic eras put to shame today's animalistic noises recorded in batches of a few minutes, churned out by the ton of studios profiting from selling to man the titillation of his basest instincts. Whereas the music of the golden era spoke to man's soul and awakened him to think of higher callings than the mundane grind of daily life, today's musical noises speak to man's most base animalistic instincts, distracting him from the realities of life by inviting him to indulge in immediate sensory pleasures with no concern for long-term consequences or anything more profound. That's very interesting, that. It was hard money that financed Bach's Brandenburg concertos, while easy money financed Miley Cyrus's twerks. Little joke there from Seyfedine. In times of sound money and low time preference, artists worked on perfecting their crafts. I quite like Miley Cyrus. I don't know about Seyfedine, but there we go. She's got some good tunes. In times of Wrecking Ball is a decent one. In times of sound money and low time preference, artists worked on perfecting their craft so they could produce valuable works in the long run. They spent years learning the intricate details and techniques of their work, perfecting it and excelling in developing it beyond their capabilities of others, to the astonishment of their patrons and the general public. Nobody stood a chance of being called an artist without years of hard work on developing their craft. Artists did not condescendingly lecture the public on what art is and why their lazy productions that took a day to make are profound. Bach never claimed to be a genius or spoke at length about how his music was better than that of others. He instead spent his life perfecting his craft. Michelangelo spent 4 years hanging from the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, working for most of the day with little food in order to paint his masterpiece. He even wrote a poem to describe the ordeal. This is interesting, this, because they're describing a completely different world where, you know, if somebody's got a bit of a spark of creativity, they could have watered that spark. They could have flourished as an artist. Like, I know loads of creative. I say loads, but like I know a lot. I've got a lot of friends that are creative, and all of them are like, oh, you know, I've got this idea for a book, and they'd explain me this book idea and be like, that is a genius idea. I would read that book. Or, oh, you know, I've just got to finish writing this album or whatever. So they've all got this creative side to them, but they just can't because they're so busy with work. And it's not being scared of work. You know, it's the fact that they've got to work these, 40, 50 hour week just to survive.
Yeah.
Whereas before, by the sounds of it, that pressure would have been a lot less before this whole, fiat system came in. So they would have had a lot more time to say, well, what do I actually want to do? I want to be an author, I want to be an artist, I want to be a musician.
Yeah. 100%. And like, I think it's even to the extent where you could work a year and then if you just work really hard, head down for a year, then you could take X amount of time off, decide what that number is, or even just scale it back where you just work 10 hours a week or something. And then the rest of the time goes into your creative endeavors and stuff. And I think this is what most people worry about as well, is that I've spoken about this with friends before and they're sort of like, yeah, well, this sounds terrible. You're just going to incentivize people not to work. And so then you're going to get like hooliganism and like, street band. And it's like, no, that's the case today because there's no like future. There's nothing to now. What are these youngsters and stuff that are doing all it? Or I say youngsters, it could be anyone doing this sort of stuff. Even just like the riots the other day or the protests in London, literally at the weekend. It's just because of the instability and the uncertainness and it's just like and for a lot of people it's just what else can they do, like they don't have anything to look forward to, or like there's no future to a lot of people sort of thing. There's a lot of fear and a lot of doubt and uncertainty, whereas when you have that certainty and it's like, oh yeah, I know I can survive for the next however long without having to worry about living paycheck to paycheck, you just get a totally different framing of mentality, and it affects the culture, it affects the food, it affects everything. And I think that's the thing, is that it's not going to happen just overnight. Like if they just said, tomorrow everyone's living on a Bitcoin standard, like, as I've said before as well, it would be an absolute disaster just because so many people rely on the state for things. But over time, that is what would happen. Like people would just get more secure, more certain, more confident in what's happening. They would need to contribute to society to like have basic things which state provide and everything. So it's just it's just so hard for us to see because we've never seen it, we've never lived in it. It sounds like the 19th century was closer to that sort of thing, but equally during that time, like you say, would you really want to live in that era or live in today's era where people were just getting ill and dying all over the place and there's so much less knowledge?
Well, people are doing that today still.
Yeah, but like people live longer to a certain extent. Whether the quality of life is better is debatable, I guess. But no, it is definitely.
Definitely, yeah. We're a lot more comfortable. Things are a lot more easy.
Yeah.
I think people's worldviews are different today than they are then. I mean, in Europe, spoke about Michelangelo. He was painting a chapel, so people had this kind of long-term worldview because I think they were probably mostly Christian at that time. So they thought, right, well, I'm not going to see the completion of this project, but I'll do it for my children, my grandchildren, my country, my they shared a worldview, they shared a faith, which goes beyond just this life. So it was kind of a religious worldview, I guess, and they were that taught them to think long term, because they're thinking of, oh well, in the Christian worldview, like death isn't the end, Whereas today, I think a lot of people are just like nihilist atheists, and they think, I don't really care because whatever we when we die, that's it, and we're going to be worm food, and I'm just, in the grand scheme of things, in the grand universe, my life's completely meaningless. I'm an accident, because everything just blew up out of nothing by pure accident, and my ancestor was actually a monkey. So why would I give a shit about my bloodline going forward? Because my granddad was a monkey. Do you know what I mean? So that's people's beliefs now. So why would you care in that worldview? Why would you create a Michelangelo if it wasn't for just cash or whatever, to get chicks? There we go. On that note, shall I read a nice poem? Now, I can't remember who. Was this by Michelangelo?
Yeah.
Right, so this is a poem that Michelangelo wrote when he was painting the Sistine Chapel. I've grown a goiter by dwelling in this den. That's a good opening line. I've grown a goiter by dwelling in this den, as cats from stagnant streams in Lombardy, or in what other land they hap to be, which drives the belly close beneath the chin. My beard turns up to heaven, my nape falls in. Fixed on my spine, my breastbone visibly grows like a harp, a rich embroidery. Bedews my face from brush drops thick and thin, my loins into my porch like levers grind. My buttock like a crupper bears my weight. My feet unguided wander to and fro. In front my skin grows loose and long, behind by bending it becomes more taut and straight. Crosswise I stain me like a Syrian bow, whence false and quaint I know, must be the fruit of squinting brain and eye, for ill can aim the gun that bends awry. Come then, Giovanni, try to succour my dead pictures and my fame, since foul I fare and painting is my shame. Only with such meticulous and dedicated effort over many decades did these geniuses succeed in producing these masterpieces, immortalizing their names as the masters of their craft. In the era of unsound money, no artist has the low time preference to work as hard or as long as Michelangelo or Bach to learn their craft properly, or spend any significant amount of time perfecting. A stroll through a modern art gallery shows artistic works whose production requires no more effort or talent than can be mustered by a bored 6-year-old. Banana on the wall. Modern artists have replaced craft and long hours of practice with pretentiousness, shock value, indignation, and existential angst as ways to cow audiences into appreciating their art, and often added some pretense to political ideals, usually of the puerile Marxist variety, to pretend play profundity. To the extent that anything good can be said about modern, quote, art, it is that it is clever in the manner of a prank or practical joke. I don't think he likes modern art, do you?
No.
It's interesting, though, because it makes a good point there where in the era of sound money, artists could spend years and years perfecting their craft, working on a masterpiece.
That's it.
Whereas nowadays, as I said before, I know some creative people, and they've all got kind of little projects, music projects, that kind of thing. And one of their main focuses is, how can I capitalize on this so I can make a living off it, because I want to be able to do it full time. And then they start thinking, well, if I do this and I do this, they have to think like that, which a creative isn't business minded, isn't marketing minded. And then they start having to do other little things in order to make a living off their art, which is a struggle, uphill battle, away from spending years mastering their craft. Because there's a difference between, working on the project truly that you have got inside of you, that you want to be your masterpiece, and then seeing what sells, seeing what works, and thinking, well, I'm going to have to do some of these kind of live streams, and I'm going to have to write this kind of, rubbish because that sells, but it's not really my thing, but it's kind of my thing. So do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
guess it's the same in any industry.
I was going to say, even just think about the conversations me and you have had in the last week. Like this is something that we're both super interested in. Both like, this is, well, it's where all of my brain space really goes at the minute. Even though I still have like trying to put food on the table in other means, sort of thing. So it's like that all gets pushed. It's like this is the additional thing. Whereas how much would you like to actually spend all of your time doing this sort of stuff and thinking of better ways to do it and create, in some ways
I'd
people
like
would
that a lot.
argue, yeah, but people would argue like being a YouTuber and stuff, like is a form of art, and that, and
Yeah.
so that's my point is like, but we can't just do that because we have to actually, well, I mean, obviously you can, like, if you think of the right ways to do it, but you should be able to take like a year or two, whatever it is, to get something up and running.
Even then, though, I think very few would do it as if money was no object, and they had, things would be so different because you're thinking, if I think people naturally, this is why we see so much like clickbait and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
And so much like,
it's because you have to.
it's because a lot of these content creators, they think, right, well, I'm making a living off this now, and I've seen that when I start talking about this polemical issue, I get 10 times more money. So if
Exactly.
I put this tweet out and cause outrage, I'm going to get 10 times more retweets. They're not looking at it from an artistic or a creative, they're looking at it from a financial, and you can kind of sniff that out a little bit as well, I think.
But it shows like what the point of Noster is, I think, though, with that exact concept. Really,
that's very interesting.
It's
Yeah,
because people at the moment, you have to appease the algorithms and what gets pushed out, and so once you see what gets pushed out, then you just create more of that sort of thing, and it encourages you to do that more and more, and become more and more extreme and clickbait.
That's right. It's the one to which gets any reaction seems to get the
which
clicks,
is
and
exactly what we, the start of this conversation around the whole core knots thing. I actually think that's kind of what's been happening to a certain extent. Again, I'm not like casting judgment on anyone or anything that has done this, but that is really what has been happening. And I actually think, I just think the knots side of the argument has been explained more / better, or communicated for easier for people to understand, is my interpretation anyway of what's happening. Whereas actually the core side probably is that more artistic, like the technical. I'm not saying this 100%, because again, like I say, there's a cognitive dissonance, or there's like stuff that I don't understand, so I can't verify it myself. This is an opinion sort of thing. Like maybe that's what is happening, is the core side has spent more time on the techie side at expense of explaining to normies what they're actually doing, if you see what I mean. Whereas I feel like the not side has got their point across much better, because more and more people have jumped on the bandwagon and then explained it easier and easier for normies to understand, sort of thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. Right, where were we? There is nothing beautiful or admirable. Yeah, right. He continues. He continues to slag off modern art. There is nothing beautiful or admirable about the output or the process of most modern art, because it was produced in a matter of hours by lazy, talentless hacks who never bothered to practice their craft, Only cheap pretentiousness, obscenity, and shock value attract attention to the naked emperor of modern art, and only long, pretentious diatribes shaming others for not understanding the work give it value. As government money has replaced sound money, patrons with low time preference and refined tastes have been replaced by government bureaucrats with political agendas as crude as their artistic taste. Naturally, then, neither beauty nor longevity matters anymore, replaced with political prattling and the ability to impress bureaucrats who control the major funding sources to the large galleries and museums, which have become a government-protected monopoly on artistic taste and standards for the artistic education. Interesting point that art has been politicized. It's almost like every single big piece of modern art that gets featured now has to have a kind of social justice or like some kind of political slant to it. You see that all the time, don't you? Like, I think I was watching a video yesterday, and it was of a piece of modern art in London somewhere, and it was basically like it was a big cube, and what it was made up of like 800 or 900 face casts, right? And the art was basically what it represented. It was. Let me see if I can find a picture. I probably won't be able to. All right, I think I've actually found it. Right, I've got it. So let me share my screen. So, can you see that?
Yeah.
Right. So what it is, this was unveiled in London. These are face casts of basically gender neutral people, right? People from the LGBTQ plus community, right? So these face casts have been. It says on the plaque like they've got pieces of skin and eyebrows and hair, face hair, and all that. They're still in there in this thing. So this modern art, right? Bear in mind, we've been talking about the Sistine Chapel. This is in London on a big podium, right? Trafalgar Square, right? 700 odd face casts of gender neutral people, which have literally got their hair and skin stuck inside of it. Now, as we were just saying, as Safedin was just saying, art is now political. It's now just that's it. It's a political statement rather than beauty. It's been where whoever wants to fund whatever political message has this. This is on a plinth in Trafalgar Square. It's mental.
Me and you could do this.
Yeah,
I often just
it's just a political
things
statement.
On things like Britain's Got Talent and stuff like that, and watched that sort of stuff for years. But any shows like that, I remember I always used to say when I was watching them, I was like, if I can do it, it's not a talent.
That's a good point. Yeah, exactly.
And me and you could find 100 LGBT plus people and get their face cast. We could figure out how to do that in like a day's worth of work, spend however much money to get these face casts, put their face in it, and then we could do that. I couldn't do the Sistine Chapel.
Exactly. It's a statement rather than art. Like
it's not art.
Art now is completely different. It's a political statement rather than and if we would say criticize it, like this is not art, this is crap. It's just a political message or whatever.
Then you're against LGBT,
or even just like some pretentious artist might be like, no, you don't get it,
or you don't understand it deeply enough.
So
whereas Bitcoin is art, like the code, that is art. Like I cannot do it. I cannot understand that code and at that deeper level sort of thing. The people that like the developers and the people that do understand it, they are artists. Like the ones that can. Do you know what I mean? Like that is a skill. That is they've dedicated serious amounts of time to understand and to be able to do it. Like that, in my eyes, is art. Like whereas something that any Tom, Dick, and Harry from the street can do is
Yeah.
not like that is
Well,
not a form of art,
it's
as far as I'm
inspiring.
concerned.
Like if somebody's so good at something to the extent where you're literally inspired by their skill, or it does make you feel inspired.
Yeah, hundred
Something.
percent.
If you look at a painting that somebody's painted and you're blown away by it, and there's beauty there, you're like, wow, that intrinsically in your heart that is amazing. And some people might look at the Bitcoin code and be like, wow, that's inspirational. Well, it's fair enough. So yeah, but a
Well,
load of masks is like, well, it's not inspiring.
It's 0 to 1, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
it's been tried before, the Bitgold and B Money and all these different things that sort of got close. It's not. I think this is where a lot of people as well, with like the whole shitcoin and stuff. They're like, yeah, but it's the first one. It's never going to survive. It's like it's not the first one. It's the first one that worked, and that's why nothing is going to beat it, because it is. It's been working for 16 years. The infrastructure's been built more and more. Like that's kind of the point of it. That is the 0 to 1 sort of thing. That will never happen again. It's the same with like when electricity was discovered and when the internet was figured out, and it's exactly the same. Or fire, for example, like you can't rediscover fire again. Like someone's already done it, sort of thing. So it's doesn't matter which example that you use of it. That is the point of it, really.
I wonder what people would say to that, because like it said earlier, the Wright brothers, they created the plane, but the planes we have now are not the same as what the Wright brothers said. And like the first car was made whenever 18 something or other, but the cars we have now are not the same as that. I guess the actual invention was,
So this is what Jeff Booth talks off a lot. The protocol comes in layers. It all comes in layers. It will all become the same with the internet. The DARPA, APRANET, or whatever that thing was, the first protocol, I think, was in the 60s. It was in like the 60s, late 60s, where it wasn't until the 90s when, what was the thing in the 90s? Is it the HTTPS, like that sort, or whatever the
the
TCP/IP ICP? That only came in the 90s, and that is when it became accessible for most people, sort of thing. And then there was more layers built on top of it again, and it will be the same with Bitcoin. It's the same, like you say, the same with the car, same with the aeroplane, same with all these kind of like where someone discovers something for the first time, the first what, and again, that's where. So people think, because that's happened with the car or the aeroplane, that they're waiting for the new car or aeroplane, or they think Casper's the new one. It's like, no,
it's actually the concept. It's the concept.
Exactly.
It's the idea which was born. Yeah, exactly.
And then things will be built on top of it. Like, for example, the Lightning Network. It makes it so much easier to transact on Bitcoin. And before that, what was that, 2018? Something like that? 2019? Maybe later. Before Lightning, it wouldn't have been possible for us to go to Prague and pay for a coffee or whatever it is that you're buying in Prague. Like, you would have been able to do it, but you'd have to like wait 10 minutes and it'd be like, oh, has the transaction gone through? So, and exactly. That's the point of it. It will all be developed on layers. There'll be more and more things that make it easier and easier and better and better. And people just can't see it because we're so fixated on the now and past and stuff that you can't sort of see what will come.
Right, let's continue. Free competition between artists and donors is now replaced with central planning by unaccountable bureaucrats, with predictably disastrous results. In free markets, the winners are always the ones who provide the goods deemed best by the public. When government is in charge of deciding winners and losers, the sort of people who have nothing better to do with their life than work as government bureaucrats are the arbiters of taste and beauty. Instead of art's success being determined by the people who have succeeded in attaining wealth through several generations of intelligence and low time preference, it's instead determined by the people with the opportunism to rise in the political and bureaucratic system best. A passing familiarity with this kind of people is enough to explain to anyone how we can end up with the monstrosities of today's art. In their fiat-fueled, ever-growing realm of control, almost all modern governments dedicate budgets to finance art and artists in various media. But as time has gone by, bizarre and barely believable stories have emerged about covert government meddling in arts for political agendas. While the Soviets funded and directed communist art to achieve political and propaganda goals, it has recently emerged that the CIA retorted by financing and promoting the work of abstract expressionist mattress and cardboard molesters, such as Mark Rothko and Jackson Pollock, to serve as an American counter. That's interesting. I wonder what footnote he's got there. I'm just going to have a quick look. So number 19. The Cultural Cold War, the CIA and the world of arts and letters. That is going to have to be a Francis Stoner Saunders, The Cultural Cold War. I'm going to have to check that book out. Anyway, that's me getting distracted there.
Yeah, I was just looking at what that book is about.
I mean, that sounds super... I mean, let's say you've got that book there which talks about people like Pollock and Rothko and all that were funded by CIA for whatever reason. Then you look at that big monstrosity that we just showed in Trafalgar Square. It makes you think, well, yeah, who funded that? Like, who funded that? It's got to be some kind of think tank with an ideological agenda and, you know, access to printing press. Do you know what I mean? It's just ideology through art.
Yeah.
It stinks.
That's it.
Only with unsound money could we have reached this artistic calamity where the two largest economic, military and political behemoths in the world were actively promoting and funding tasteless trash picked by people whose artistic tastes qualify them for careers in Washington and Moscow spy agencies and bureaucracies. You know what I've just thought there? It's interesting. A lot of these artists they're talking about, like, you know, Pollock, Rothko. Who was the other guy that had that, like, tin of beans? He just had, like, tins of beans in different colours. Do you know that guy? Who was that?
Yeah, I know who you mean.
He was a famous guy, wasn't it? I think...
Andy Warhol.
Warhol, yeah, and all these kind of people. It says like the CIA promoted this thing, so it's basically a psyop, yeah. And it's almost funny because a lot of these 60s psyops, they're so see-through now. You know, like I was saying last week with this art, it's crap. Anybody with like 2020 vision, you know, like a Gen Z, a millennial that was born, they see something like Pollock, and as you were saying with Britain's Got Talent, I could do that. That's crap, right? Yeah. And it's the same as like the moon landing. You know, when you look at like the footage of that, you think that's fake as hell. That's crap, right? Yeah. It's like a lot of these 60s psyops, they worked at the time, but now we can see we're like, this is actually crap. Of course, Pollock was a psyop. Like nobody genuine at that time would have liked that unless it was funded and touted as the new Vogue thing, you know.
I remember I said that to my parents just the other week, actually. I was like, oh, you know how, like, obviously no one actually went to the moon in the 60s. And they were like, what? Because they were so young at the time as well.
Yeah.
And it was just...
It's like, but I saw it on TV.
And they watched it on TV, and all that sort of stuff. I was like, just look at a picture. Just Google, like, the image of it. Was that, do you actually think that could get to the moon? Yeah. And it was a bit like... I sort of shattered a dream in there. I could see it. I was like, oh, I kind of wish I didn't say that now. But it was just, it just amazed me that they, and I imagine the whole generation would have just wholeheartedly believed it and not thought to even question it, because why would you? Why would someone fake that? You know, exactly. Like, that's the question, isn't it? It's like,
it's a good question.
Why?
Where was I? Yes. Only with unsound money... Did I read that one? Only with unsound money could we have reached this artistic calamity where the two largest economic, military and political behemoths in the world were actively promoting and funding tasteless trash picked by people whose artistic tastes qualify them for careers in Washington and Moscow spy agencies and bureaucracies. As the Medicis have been replaced with the artistic equivalents of DMV workers, the result is an art world teeming with visually repulsive garbage produced in a matter of minutes by lazy, talentless hacks looking for a quick paycheck by scamming the world's aspirants to artistic class with concocted nonsensical stories about it symbolizing anything more than the utter depravity of the scoundrel pretending to be an artist who made it. He's going off on one for pages on this art world. I was reading somewhere once that a lot of this modern art stuff is just like money laundering. They just inflate the prices to like, oh, this is a banana on the wall and it's $55 million. It's just laundering money and just transferring money from one thing to the next.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Mark Rothko's art took mere hours to produce, but was sold to gullible collectors holding millions of today's unsound money, clearly solidifying modern art as the most lucrative get-rich scam of our age. It's shitcoin, basically. All this stuff is just shitcoins, NFTs. No talent, hard work, or effort is required on the part of a modern artist, just a straight face and a snobby attitude when recounting to the nouveau riche why the splatter of paint on a canvas is anything more than a hideous, thoughtless splatter of paint, and how their inability to understand the work of art unexplained can be easily remedied with a fat check. What is astounding is not just the preponderance of garbage like Rothko's in the modern art world, it is the conspicuous absence of great masterpieces that can compare with the great works of the past. One cannot help but notice that there aren't too many Sistine chapels being constructed today anywhere, nor are there many masterpieces to compare with the great paintings of Leonardo, Raphael, Rembrandt, Caravaggio, or Vermeer. This is even more astonishing when one realizes that advances in technology and industrialization would make producing such artwork far easier to accomplish than it was in the golden era. I can't remember what I was reading the other day, but it said that the only reason why we are still, even slightly living a comfortable lifestyle today, this far into the fiat experiment, we're 56 years into the fiat money experiment, and the currency that we work for has been debased so much in that time. The only reason why we've got any kind of good standard of living is from technological advances happening at the same time. Like that's the only thing that we're, the only deflationary thing, the only advanced things that are actually moving forward are tech. But it's kind of like we've got that, but we've got the debasement of the fiat currency as well working against us. So if we didn't have advances in tech, things would be a lot more noticeable that, the currency's been debased rapidly.
Yeah, well, it's two opposing systems, isn't it?
Exactly.
I'm actually just reading what's his name? The Big Print.
Oh, Lawrence the Part.
Yeah, and that's
a very good book.
That was literally the bit I was just reading last night. Was exactly that. Is like he's making Booth's point. Really, it just comes from Booth, but they can't both exist because they're conflicting. Like the free market is conflicting with our current system, and it's not really possible. And the other point he made
they're dissonant to each other.
Yeah, the point he was making as well was that people worry that, like in deflation, because everything's going to be getting cheaper, they worry that everyone's going to stop spending, and so it's going to create massive issues and stuff with the economy. But he was making a point like, I know this TV is going to be cheaper in 5 years, but I want to watch football or whatever it is that you want to watch. And so I'm going to buy it now because I can't wait 5 years to buy this apple and banana because I'm hungry now.
Exactly.
There are basic needs and basic things that people want, and people still want to travel. People want to travel when they're young. They don't want to wait 10 years until they might have issues. People are not just going to stop spending because things are going to get cheaper. And I was like, yeah, that was a good point.
Maybe we'll do that book at some point. That is a very good book.
Yeah.
Big Print.
I do like it. It's long though.
It's long, but it's quite concise. The
It's
chapters are not
easy to read as well.
easy to read. Yeah, maybe we'll do that one at some point. Um, The Sistine Chapel will leave its viewers in awe, and any further explanation of its content, method, and history will transform the awe into appreciation of the depth of thought, craft, and hard work that went into it. Before they became famous, even the most pretentious of art critics could have passed by a Rothko painting neglected on a sidewalk and not even noticed it, let alone bothered to pick it up and take it home. Only after a circle jerk of critics have spent endless hours pontificating to promote. He's going off on modern art. He hates modern art.
Oh man,
only, only after a circle jerk of critics have spent endless hours pontificating to promote this work will the hangers-on and aspirant nouveau riche begin to pretend there is deeper meaning to it and spend modern unsound money on it. Several stories have surfaced over the years of pranksters leaving random objects in modern art museums, only for modern art lovers to swarm around them in admiration. I did see once, I think it was somebody there was a prank on a TV show I watched. It was something like a fire alarm or like a fire extinguisher or something. Somebody went in to an art gallery and just put like a frame around this fire alarm and like a little plaque next to it, and then filmed people's reactions. There were people there like, I can't remember what it was, but it was something like that, like a chair or something, or a light switch, something stupid like that. Only for modern art lovers to swarm around them in admiration, illustrating the utter vacuity of our era's artistic tastes. But there is perhaps no more fitting tribute to the value of modern art than the many janitors at art exhibits worldwide who, demonstrating admirable perceptiveness and dedication to their job, have repeatedly thrown expensive modern art installations into the dustbins to which they belong. Some of the most iconic artists of our era, such as Damien Hirst, Gustav Metzger, Tracy Emin, and Italian duo Sarah Goldschmied and Eleonora Chiara, have received this critical appraisal by janitors more discerning than the insecure nouveau riche who spent millions of dollars on what the janitors threw away. A case can be made for ignoring all this worthless scribbling as just a government-funded embarrassment to our era and looking beyond it for what is worthwhile. Nobody, after all, would judge a country like America by the behavior of its incompetent DMV employees napping on their shifts as they take out their frustrations on their hapless customers. Do you reckon he just had a bad running at the DMV? And he's like...
he's just had a bad day. He's had a bad day while he's writing this.
As he was getting his driving license renewed, he's writing his book and he gets back, he's like, the incompetent DMV employees napping on their shifts as they take out their frustrations on their hapless customers. And perhaps we shouldn't judge our era by the work of government workers spinning stories about piles of worthless cardboard as if they were artistic achievements. But even then, we find less and less that can hold a candle to the past. In From Dawn to Decadence, a devastating critique of modern demotic culture, Jack Barzun concludes, quote, all that the 20th century has contributed and created since is refinement by analysis or criticism by pastiche and parody, end quote. Barzun's work has resonated with many of this generation because it contains a large degree of depressing truth. Once one overcomes one's inherent bias to believe in the inevitability of progress, there is no escaping the conclusion that ours is a generation that is inferior to its ancestors in culture and refinement. In the same way, the Roman subjects of Diocletian, living off his inflationary spending and drunk on the barbaric spectacles of the Colosseum, could not hold a candle to the great Romans of Caesar's era who had to earn their aureus coins with sober hard work. That's an interesting finisher. I've always had an issue with people that have got this idea, and it is like a pervading idea in our society, that we are constantly advancing and getting better and better and better. Everything is advancing with modern life. We're just way better, and things are going to get way better, way more advanced in the future, guaranteed. Because people in the olden times, they were just stupid. they were so stupid and medieval. Like, look at those. But it's like they have this kind of built-in idea that life is just guaranteed to go like this. But it's like, as he's saying here, let's just look at the art. Like Sistine Chapel versus a banana on the wall. That's not an increase in beauty. Let's look at the currency. That's not an increase in wealth or prosperity for people. You can look at anything. The food. It's another thing. Like 200 years ago, 150 years ago, it was probably things like organic, homegrown meat, eggs, butter, milk. Now it's like Cheerios with soy milk and lab grown. Do you know what I mean?
I
Like
would argue the
get
whole smartness as well is almost the opposite. I mean, have you seen those
Exactly.
videos of like where people go on the street and ask people the most basic questions ever? Like, it's just because people are just so reliant on like technology, AI.
We're 100% we're not even
education is just appalling. I can attest to that from being in it for 10 years. Things, like teaching in it is just, it's dreadful. Like kids do not they don't care. Like, and they don't need to care, like, because the government will look after you.
Exactly. Just have
4 kids, get a house.
I read this thing ages ago, and it was poetry from World War I soldiers, and these soldiers were like farmers, just butchers, average dudes, right? But the poetry was like the most beautiful love story, the most well-written, eloquent poetry from average dudes that were butchers and farmers. Now, the
average person doesn't even read a book.
Exactly. Like we're not this idea that things are just progressing so good. Yay, things are so good now because of that's all nonsense. Yeah. We're going towards the kind of. Have you seen the film Idiocracy?
What? I feel like I might have.
It's a Mike Judge film. So the guy that made Beavis and Butthead.
Oh yeah,
and King of the Hill.
I haven't seen that.
It's basically like a dystopian. It's a comedy film. You need to watch it. Everybody needs to watch it. This guy, I can't remember exactly, but it's kind of like the same concept as Futurama. He wakes up. He gets frozen in some kind of incubator, and he wakes up like 1,000 years in advance. 1,000 years in the future. Everybody's so stupid. They're just kind of sat watching this 95-inch TV, eating cereal. Like nobody reads a book. He turns out to be the cleverest man in the world, and he becomes their king, basically, like their god. Like and there's one company which is ruling the world, and that's Walmart. Or is it Walmart or something like that? Like we're going towards that reality, not this kind of utopian ideal of like everybody's so free and clever. And no, we're going downhill. If you ask me.
Well, and why is that?
It's another good question.
It's obviously because of the money, isn't it? I think we know that, but the majority of people have no idea what the problem is. They know there's a problem, but they don't know what it is. It's just plugged into the system. It's like the Matrix unfolding. It really is. It's crazy. But or like Hunger Games society is like just becoming more and more like that, like slowly. But it's nothing happens suddenly. It's just all slowly. It's boiling the frog. And this is.
I mean, that statue in Trafalgar Square is like some kind of ancient pagan plumbing sacrifice. So it's literally got people's skin and eyebrows in there and stuff. That's some gross thing.
Yeah.
But I was doing a bit of a deep dive on Keynes because we said we might do a bit of a special episode deep dive in Keynes, and apparently he was the poster child for the Fabian socialists. His style of economics was their chosen one, which is why it's been adopted the last 100 years. I was looking into this whole thing, like Fabian socialist, basically socialism, but instead of like Marxism, which was about like just blasting like violent revolution, let's take it over, let's do it all quick in one go. this idea of Fabian socialism. It's like what you just said, like this slow and steady thing. Apparently, there was this like ancient Roman emperor called Fabius who was believed more in like this. He would change policy and he would change the culture and he would indoctrinate people, and it was more of a slow and steady from the inside out change rather than Marxist socialism, which was just like take to the streets, violent revolution. And lots of people would say, well, we're in a current, the Fabian socialists are running the show, currently, which is why we're seeing this kind of slow, steady subversion towards that. So it's what you're saying. It's boiling the frog. But yeah, I need to do some more deep diving into that. But it's super interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I just see it impacts everything. The money, it really does, and it's hard to like say what it will look like once it's all, if the money is fixed. It's hard to say like this is exactly how it's going to happen, or the transition's very hard. Definitely, it's almost impossible to say what is going to happen. But just even things like the education system is just so bad now. It really is, like even worse, I would say, than when we were at school. But like there's just such an entitlement and a disconnect from what is truly important. And even within teachers, it really is. It's like, teachers almost feel like entitled to whatever, like random things. And it's just, it's that is what is teaching the next generation, the generations coming through. And so they're just not learning the stuff that they need to learn. They have no interest in learning. Like there's no desire to learn. They see no reason to it. They just want to go home, play Fortnite, or like whatever it is, watch whatever it is that they're watching. And it's just, it's not a good look for the future. But with a sound monetary system, you could have a way better education system. It could just be done, like even to the extent where people don't necessarily have to send their kids to school. Whereas I think the whole unschooling and that idea of keeping your kids at home is still so frowned upon, like homeschooling as what people call it, is there's such a stigma and a frowned upon, that's weird. You're homeschooled, that's super weird sort of thing. Like, that's most people's perception of it.
Well, am I right in thinking that all of the curriculum nowadays is completely centralized as well? Like,
everyone, you don't have any leeway to teach.
You have to teach what the curriculum.
I found during COVID, it was.
But the curriculum is government, like it's done by the government. Is that right? Go on. What were you saying during COVID?
Well, no, I was just there was a little patch of time during COVID, so I wasn't working for a couple of years during that time. I was learning some other stuff, and luckily enough, I have a supportive wife that understood what I was trying to do, so I was able to. But like when I went back to teaching art, so it was like kind of COVID was sort of been done, but we had about, I don't know, 3 or 4 months where as a PE teacher, we had to teach in a classroom and they all had to be like socially distanced and stuff. I mean, it was basically nothing. There's hardly anything for us to do because the way that we really need to assess most of the years is through like physical activity. So we basically just had leeway to teach what we want. So I was just like talking so much about like food and nutrition.
Well, that sounds good.
And it's like, it was just eye-opening at how little people, like they had no idea like what they're putting into the body, and just basic things, like carbs, protein, fats, like they have no idea, like they've never even looked at it sort of thing. They just no idea on calories, and like just not that calories is that important, but like the whole, because I think I've done a weird amount of looking into different diets and different things, like like paleo diets and that sort of stuff. But yeah, like it was eye-opening at how little kids knew about, and just like general healthy, routine habits, like reading, going to bed, like actually not looking at screens before bed and things like that. they had no idea. Like the kids don't even know that that's not what they should be doing, sort of thing. And I just thought, oh, this is obviously like common knowledge. People know this, but
That's the default setting. They're just doing that.
yeah, just what? Yeah, like ask them like how many of them have like TVs in a room. Pretty much all of them have TVs in a room, and it's like, do you watch TV or play on stuff before going to bed? And it's like, what time do you go to bed? Just asking like these sort of questions. Kids being like, yeah, I went to bed at like 2 a.m. yesterday. I was like, what time do you wake up? 6:30. So you've had 4.5 hours sleep when you're going through your biggest growth. And and like the teachers wonder why you're an absolute nightmare. Like, you know, and that's just being compounded. And it's like, what do your parents not say anything? They're like, they don't really know. They don't really care. Like, I just, you know, just stay in my room and I'm quiet. So like, they don't know. And obviously that's not every kid. That's not every kid at all. But it's crazy.
Maybe the default. Have you ever read any books by John Taylor Gatto?
No.
I'm going to share the screen again now. This guy is super interesting. So he was a teacher. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Right. So this is a book called Dumbing Us Down, and he's done a few books. He was basically like an award-winning teacher in America, right? We're talking like top dog teacher for like 20, 30 years. And he wrote this book basically saying that when he was teaching, he knew how to teach. He knew what worked. He knew how kids' brains worked. He knew basically how to teach, right? I mean, how long were you a teacher for?
10 years-ish.
10 years, right. So you, by the end of your 10 years, you probably know what works, what doesn't, how to control a class, what time of day the kids are best for a certain subject, what, you know, all kinds of stuff. You probably had that experience. And this guy had 25 years. So he knew what worked and knew what didn't. And he basically said to these governing bodies and all these kind of governing boards, right, we need to do this. We need to teach them this way. And they said, no, we can't do that. And he was basically like battling this authority above him. And then after a while, he said it clicked and he said, this curriculum isn't designed to make these kids learn and thrive. That's not what it's designed for. It's designed for, I mean, that gives his main thesis here, you know, it confuses the students. It presents an incoherent ensemble of information that the child needs to memorize to stay in school. Apart from the tests and trials, this program is similar to the television. It fills almost all the free time of children. One sees and hears something only to forget it again. 2, it makes them teaches them to accept their class affiliation. It makes them indifferent. It makes them emotionally dependent. It makes them intellectually dependent. It teaches them a kind of self-confidence that requires constant confirmation by experts. That's an important one. It makes it clear to them that they cannot hide because they're always supervised. He basically says that the whole purpose of modern state school education is designed to make people subservient followers of authority, to go and do their 9 to 5, to work their job, to never question authority. And that's it. Make them subservient slaves.
Speak to any teacher, the amount of them that will say, oh my God, the kids just need to be spoon-fed. Like they will say a variation of that. Every single teacher will say that.
Yeah.
And that they cannot think for themselves. They cannot come to, and again, this is overgeneralization. There obviously are certain kids that can, but it's scary. It really is scary. Like honestly, going back in after COVID, so I've been teaching these kids for like 5 years before taking like 2 years out, and then I came back in, and I had like good relationship with like most of the kids, if not all of them, like that I would teach, and because it's PE as well, so it's a bit of an outlet, and you quite lucky, like, you know, most kids quite like it, not all kids again, but I remember going in, and so it's been like a couple of years since I've seen them, and I going in, like I did some like cover or something the year before I went back in properly, and going into like a classroom where a teacher had left me. It was like, carry on what they're doing. It was an hour-and-a-half lesson with 20 boys in a PE class, like, but they're inside and the only instructions I got was just make them carry on what they're doing. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be like carnage. Like I knew these kids as well. I was like, they're boisterous, and I was like, oh, this is going to be a long hour and a half. And I went in, and no joke, they are like zombies. They were just all spread out 2 meters apart, like table. They're just all on the laptop. most of them not doing whatever they need to be. But obviously, I'm only in there for like an hour and a half, so I'm just like, as long as they whatever, But it got about like 50 minutes in, I was like, oh, this is like depressing. So I was like, let's go outside. Make sure you stay like socially distant. Let's just go and walk a couple of laps of the track, and then we'll come back in, and you can crack on again. And then I could have like a bit of a chat with them and stuff. But it's just like those few years, the regression of just general social interaction, general being a good person, the dependence on their laptop and like just getting the information, because it was they were just feeding like booklets, and it's like just fill in this bit. It was all just being literally spoon fed to them.
It pushed them onto the screen even more.
Way more. Like it was insane. And then those like particularly that year after COVID was chaos, because then like kids could now start interacting again, and they just didn't really know how to do it. It was like letting a caged animal out. That was the like what it felt like, really, is you just you've caged up these kids for 2 years.
A little bit timid coming back out, like
some kids never even come back to school, sort of thing. They were like super scared of the world and germs and that sort of stuff, and but like
scared
just so. But that's what it had to become like, exactly like what you were just reading there. There was no unsupervised time, like it was becoming less and less unsupervised. Like they cut down the lunch hours because there was becoming more and more issues, so they shortened them. And it's like, that's the word. They need more. They need more, but they need to be taught how to behave again, like taught how to interact and like just be a normal person, because they don't.
What it says here that. He says, it teaches a kind of self-confidence that requires constant confirmation by experts. And we saw that even with the adults.
Like this, sir, is this right? Sir, is this... Get that all the time. It's like, just do the work, like, and then we'll figure it out, later, or like, it's crazy.
But if that's what this award-winning teacher says, this is what schooling is designed, this is what the curriculum is designed to do, and you let that run for 50, 60, 70 years... you're going to get adults that are still in that cage because they've been taught that. And then something like COVID comes along, and then it's like, what do the experts say?
Yes,
the
sir.
Experts say, I can't go and see grandma. I've got to inject myself with this mysterious concoction and, stay 6 feet apart. And they'll just, yes, sir, whatever you say, sir. Exactly. And we saw that on a mass scale. I think it's probably a consequence that people have been taught this.
But I think if it was to happen again, not anytime soon, I think it will be a very different outcome. I think there would be mass riot. I don't think we're far away from real social breakdown. If people's jobs are being taken down. Yeah, maybe not, but but not in a healthy way, not in the right way, not about the right things. It will be about because of immigrants again or something. They'll push the narrative to make it someone else's fault, as always.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, the thing they'll blame the far right extremists or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's all their fault, obviously.
The far right extremists. But the thing which softened the COVID thing was that they printed more money and just gave people free money. So it's like, you can't do all this, but you get free money. So I think that softened the blow for a lot of people.
I remember speaking to people. I was like, "Don't you think it's weird, like that we're just getting free money? Like, aren't you worried about what that means and like the consequences and potential inflation?" And it's like, nah, well, it's free money, isn't it? Like, it's all good. It's all rosy right now. Like that's the thing. Like everyone's so short-sighted with everything. I find, and even people that I think of as pretty intelligent would be having that same response. Really, it's not just like stupid people.
That's that high time preference, isn't it? So to summarize the chapter 5 but Bitcoin standard book, let's go buy some stats. Buy Bitcoin.
Stay humble, stack sats.
Stay humble, stack sats. Should we call it a day?
Yeah.
That was a good one, brother. Enjoyed that. Right then, see everybody next time.
Yeah. Peace. See ya.